I think it's a hard distinction because I'm gonna be honest with you. I know some of the things that the Taliban has done in the past and how egregious it is. A lot of those forms of violence they still enact internally. Externally though, they understand the long game, right? They understand that like you can't win over an international community with doing the things that they were doing in the late 90s. I actually don't even think I can say this on live.
Vinny, what's up?
Hey, what's up?
Hey.
What we debating here? I just kind of joined.
It can be anything you want. It can be this background, or we've got other ones.
Really quick, someone has a train going in their background.
It's me.
Jaden?
Yes, yes.
Oh, can you
It's always
mute for
me.
just, you know, is it done
No.
going through? Oh,
Yes, it's
Yeah,
done.
you guys
Okay.
both Biden supporters?
Yep.
Yeah, we can debate that.
All right.
Okay.
So, what
What
is
are
your
the
take on Donald Trump being a criminal mastermind? No, I'm kidding. What is your take on Biden?
Well, I mean, I'm like more I'm towards the middle a little bit, but I'm definitely farther right. I just think that things have just gotten way worse ever since Biden has become president. I think that like the economy has gotten worse. Just in general, I think things have gotten worse for America.
By what metric? The economy's doing better than it was under Trump. There is inflation, which is bad, but that's global. And there's been efforts undertaken by the administration towards undercutting that. So I don't know that that's necessarily an argument for why Donald Trump is better, given that in some small ways he directly contributed to it.
I think Donald Trump's also just a better leader overall.
I don't think so at all.
Why is that?
His temperament, his whiny demeanor, and the constant crying and blaming and scapegoating and dividing of citizens, the
But he seems
attacks
a
that he
lot
goes
more
against.
coherent than Joe Biden.
He said that Hannibal Lecter endorsed him during his rally. He said that children are invading our schools. He said that people within democratic states can unalive babies after they've been born. All of these things are far and away divorced from reality. And you know that. You've heard these things.
I mean, every president has said something questionable,
Okay, then
but
what is the argument that
just
Joe Biden is
I'm
worse?
saying overall, President Trump was much more coherent.
Did those things make sense? He said magnets go poof in water. He said his dad was born in Germany when he was born in New York. He said windmills kill whales and cause cancer.
I don't think I've ever heard that before.
These are things he said.
Like when? Like when has he said that windmills
Here,
kill whales?
right here.
Well, even then, I mean, like I don't know.
Former President Donald Trump
I've
says
listened to his
windmills are
speeches.
driving the whales off. Hmm?
I've just listened to his speeches, and Joe Biden just seems much more
What
like
was the
out of
last
it.
speech you watched?
The last speech I watched was when he was
Let me get past this ad.
I don't know where he was exactly. It was a few months ago though.
Think of it, along the entire eastern part of our country. This is supposedly in the name of preventing whale strikes. But you have a better chance of being struck by lightning than hitting a whale with your boat. There has only been, listen to this, one such whale killed off the coast of South Carolina in the last 50 years. But on the other hand, their windmills are causing whales to die in numbers never seen before. Nobody does anything about that. They're washing up a show. I saw it this weekend. 3 of them came up. You wouldn't see it once a year. Now they're coming up on a weekly basis.
None of that's true. I don't know what the hell that means. So,
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's plenty of clips of Joe Biden saying I mean I can't really think of the quotes exactly, but I mean you can
right, but
just
these aren't just
you know what
isolated
I mean?
clips
Like
here. These are like full on speeches. All the first three things that I gave you were within his weekend speech in Jersey. So you guys can point to like one few second thing out of an hour and a half of things, and I can point to about a dozen or so, not more.
I just meant by the way he speaks. Like he
I know.
like President Trump seems like a much more assertive type of person than Joe
If
Biden,
what
and I
he's
think
saying
that
makes
that would
no sense, right? That's typical of people that are facing dementia. They tend to be a lot more assertive, but the things that they say don't actually align with reality. So he can say whatever he wants in whatever tone, whatever candor. If it's not factual, if it's misinformation, if it's outright lunacy, then I don't take much stock in that.
but it's not all outright lunacy though. Like it's not.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
just
Here's more from the same speech. He said that she is planning on taking Beijing. I don't know if you know where Beijing is. He said he wants to deport
China.
Palestinian college campus protesters. He called Jimmy Carter Jimmy Connors, and he had as his keynote speaker a registered sex offender.
Well, he can't. If he was saying so much nonsense, then there would have been much more conflicts and things of that nature that would have occurred when he was president.
There's plenty of conflicts.
Yeah, but they none of them started because of him.
None of these conflicts happening today started because of Biden.
But I mean, they happened like while he was president. Like they started when he became
Wait, but he
president.
didn't
Is what I
start
mean.
them. Right. Things happened under Trump. Now you're switching up the goalpost here. Is it someone
No,
started something or something occurred during their
it
administration?
I
Because
mean it
Donald Trump
occurred during
negotiated with the
their
Taliban.
yeah, but it occurred during their while he was president. Is what I'm
Right.
saying.
Trump's negotiation with the Taliban occurred during his administration. His freeing of 5,000 Taliban prisoners happened during him, which ultimately led to the 13 that were unalived.
Wait, could you repeat that one more time?
So Donald Trump initiated and signed the Doha Agreement, which was a negotiation with the Taliban towards the withdrawal of Afghanistan, which freed 5,000 Taliban prisoners.
Hmm. I mean, I feel well. Joe Biden took us out. He took us out of the Middle East, and we left behind.
Under Trump's plan,
It wasn't Trump's plan.
the Doha Agreement was Donald Trump's
It
initiative.
wasn't Trump's plan to leave behind
Yes,
all the gear
yes,
and
that too. Read the cigars report because that was absolutely part of our protocol. Was
I
to
think
gift the
Biden rushed
ANA
it.
used artillery and weaponry and destroy what was left.
I think
Which we did.
if Trump was still president, he would have been much more methodical with the way he
You can keep
extracted
saying
everything.
that. I'm telling you things that happened because of Donald Trump.
Donald Trump set up no plan to leave Afghanistan.
But that wasn't because of Donald Trump, because we extracted whenever Joe Biden was president.
Donald Trump had
Under
a year.
his plan of action.
Donald Trump did nothing. Joe Biden inherited nothing and then had to evacuate the country. And I will agree there's some things that Joe Biden definitely messed up. The overwhelming majority of this was not his fault.
But so he had a year. So he had a year
Joe
Donald Trump
Biden,
had a
to
no.
solid
change
year.
everything.
Donald Trump had a year. Joe Biden had 4 months.
So the plan was created a year before Trump was out of office. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
The Doha 2020 agreement, was that in February? I think it was in February of 2020.
February, yes.
We do this in every country. We leave equipment behind in every country. In fact, it's not even the first time we've left equipment in Afghanistan.
Yeah, but it was like $80 billion worth.
Destroyed. No, it wasn't $80 billion worth. No, the only way that you get to that number is by factoring in the training that we provided to the Afghan National Army. I think it was 10 or 20 billion total was the amount that we gave them over the course since 2010.
But there were like Black Hawk helicopters that we left behind, things like that.
ANA, owned by the ANA. Those are not ours. We had set up a government in Kabul, like we had helped establish democracy in Kabul, and part of that came with attempting to train and fund the ANA, the Afghan National Army. And that training came with about $80 billion total in equipment and training, and yeah.
So we just gave those to them. It wasn't
Yeah.
I think
ours.
it's a bit of
I see.
doublespeak to have concern towards giving away equipment or leaving equipment, as you put it, and not so much the fact that who obtained that equipment was the Taliban that Donald Trump freed.
Yeah, the Taliban has taken over, and I don't think things are much different. I
Donald
think
Trump enabled that.
yeah, but I mean things. The Taliban is like their own government now. I don't think anything major has
No, it was the
happened.
ANA. It was the Afghan government.
Yeah, but now that the Taliban's taken over, I was watching a
Right.
documentary
Because
about
they
it.
were freed by Trump.
Yeah, I know.
Right. We freed the financial restrictions against them, and we freed the actual physical prisoners.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying that the Taliban is they don't seem like the terrorist group that they used to be.
They're still bad and irrational.
Like they're
They're
fighting against
absolutely a
ISIS
terrorist
now.
organization.
So they're fighting against ISIS-K, which is a subsect of ISIS that are
Yeah.
predominantly former Pashtun members and Taliban members from that region of the world. They don't like them because they view them as, interestingly enough, extremists, but they fundamentally disagree about the future of Afghanistan. And ISIS-K undermines the Taliban's authority there.
Yeah, so what makes the Taliban a terrorist group now?
They've
'Cause that's
executed
what you
their
were
own
saying.
citizens.
Um,
Like for what?
For a variety of things.
Because we execute people here too.
Right.
I
They
would
do it on a
say
grander scale,
I would
not as
say
a form of
in
punishment.
I would say that that is a difficult distinction. I would classify them. See, because that's the thing. They're not exclusively a terrorist organization, but they're not really a.
Like what makes them
I mean, they
like
are a
what makes them a
government.
terrorist?
Well, they literally are pushing religious law. I would say that other things. I mean, that's hard. It would depend, but I would say that there is significant issues going on with unaliving extrajudicially of people within Afghanistan that disagree with them, specifically
Like
remnants of the Northern Alliance, and also even from religious perspectives, women or
ISIS
men
is the
that
one that like is actually terrorizing people with like the videos, and they did the
I think it's a hard distinction because I'm gonna be honest with you. I know some of the things that the Taliban has done in the past and how egregious it is. And so I would say that a lot of those forms of violence they still enact internally. Externally though, they understand the long game, right? They understand that like you can't win over an international community with you can't win over an international community with doing the things that they were doing in the late 90s. Um, I actually don't even think I can say this on live. But like some of the types of crime or some of the types of violence that were happening in the infighting and fighting going on with the Taliban was really, really gross on every level. And I remember from it's called the Taliban, and it's by Rashid. I don't want to mess his name up. It's by Ahmed Rashid, and it's called Taliban, Militant Islam, Oil, and everything. And I don't remember all the stuff that the Taliban was doing because there was a bunch of back and forth about the fighting that happened throughout the 90s. So I think, no, I wanted to illustrate the type of violence that was happening with the Taliban at that time. This was happening, I believe, to the Taliban. However, the Taliban was doing equally as disturbing things to other people that were against them, predominantly the government of Kabul at that time, and the list goes on. I mean, yeah, pretty disturbing stuff. They would also do things like public in a like they a whole bunch of money was put together to build them a new soccer stadium, right? Because at that point in time in the 90s, no government knew what to do with Afghanistan, right? Because they were like, do we trust the Taliban? Do we not trust? No one really knew. And so they attempted to build them a soccer stadium. And that soccer stadium they used for public executions. An NGO put together tens of millions of dollars for a soccer stadium, and they used it for public executions. And so it was really embarrassing for the international community. They launched, I would say probably they launched terrorist attacks against the United States. So yeah, I would still probably qualify them as a terrorist organization, despite the fact that they have attempted to turn around their international image. I think it's too tainted. They're there to stay very clearly, and they will be in control of Afghanistan for a very long time. However, I would still classify them based on their previous conduct and still even the conduct that they're doing now. Yeah, they did work with the United States to evacuate people, but only because they wanted international recognition for doing that, not because they actually gave a shit. So,
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
so I would say yeah. I think that's a complicated thing, but I would say yeah that they're still qualified as a. Now they've turned. I don't. There are some groups that they still have inroads with that are like they do state sponsored terrorism. It's just ISIS-K is like vehemently against the Taliban because they do not view them as extreme enough and hold the same ideas. But most other networks in there, um, yeah, they're yeah they have connections with them. The Haqqani network, Al Qaeda. I say to a lesser extent Al Qaeda, but the Haqqani network and other various networks that are all through Pakistan and the northern region. So
Yeah, that's a fair point. If you want to judge them, you mean yeah, judging someone by their past, I guess that's fair. I don't know. It is hard to judge that one.
I think it's pretty easy.
yeah, I think I would
Well,
qualify them as. I think
well,
the
they're an
like.
actual government, you know. Like I feel like a terrorist organization is like
Right, but the
not
Yeah,
really.
Nazis were a government
Yeah.
too.
right. You could qualify. I mean, that's where because like typically terrorist organization would be qualified as being like an extra governmental group, but no, they're state sponsored terrorism, right? I would 100% call Bashar al-Assad a terrorist and say that the Syrian regime is terroristic. There's no question in my mind. So I don't know why I wouldn't hold that belief for the Taliban, and I would hold that belief for North Korea. I would hold that belief in large in ISI in Pakistan, um, in various places like the Congo, Ethiopia has done terroristic things. I don't know. That's a. I think in the case of the Taliban and the case of like other ones I mentioned, it's an easier call. Yeah, I would say it's an easier call on the ones that I've said than some of the other ones. Like, do these qualify? Does Ethiopia qualify for the war crimes against Tigray, or does Eritrea qualify, or does the um, military dictatorship in Myanmar qualify as one? And what they're doing to predominantly the uh, um, the Uyghurs. Or no, who is it? Is it? I think it's Uyghurs. Rohingyans. Sorry, Rohingya. I don't know why. I was thinking of China for some reason. I don't know. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Um. Well, is it okay if I switch to a different topic?
Yeah. Just in
Because
summation, I think
I
that it would be
guess.
more. Just in summation, like I think it would be more difficult for some other countries to answer that because Ethiopia is a democracy, but they have done things that are abhorrent. I would not call them a terrorist state, but there's a question mark there. But when I think it comes to Taliban, I don't think there's a question mark. They're pretty clearly.
yeah, that's fair.
Sorry, yeah, you can swap if you want.
Yeah. I was wondering what your thoughts on the Second Amendment are, since you guys are seem to be more democratic.
I support a well-regulated militia.
Support what?
A well-regulated militia.
Okay. So You're for the Second Amendment then? Like what?
I'm for a well-regulated militia, which means
Okay,
exactly
so
that. That there should be caps on what people can own, how people own it, and their ability to obtain it.
what would you say would breach the regulation? Like, all right, what about like an AR-15? You think people can own AR-15s?
I don't think civilians need an AR-15.
Even for like home defense?
Even for home defense, yeah.
Because I
Why,
think,
why do you
me
need 30 rounds?
personally, why do you need 30 rounds? Is that what you asked?
My mic
Well,
gave out.
I think if someone is coming into your house, you should have whatever weapon
Right, but for the
of choice you
range,
think is necessary.
that fires, you don't need something if that's a close encounter. Otherwise, you're a pretty piss poor shot.
At the range, is that what you said?
Yeah, get a shotgun.
Yeah, but shotguns are like hard, like they're hard to reload, you know? Like an AR-15, you have plenty of rounds.
I would
Why do you
rather have
need that much for a home
I would
invasion?
rather, as someone
You
that
might
owns
have
a
more
gun, I
than
would
one
rather have a
person. You might have people running away.
I would rather
If
have a
they're running
shotgun,
away,
to be
then you
honest
don't
with you.
shoot them.
But if
Yeah,
they're in
what?
your house,
Yeah, you
If
still
someone's
Yeah,
in
can't
if
your
they're
shoot them.
house,
running, you don't have the right to shoot them.
yeah, if they're on your property
Running
No, you
away,
and they stole your stuff.
no,
No,
you don't.
no, oh my god, it gets worse. You're gonna go to prison. What are you doing?
So if someone comes into your house
Yes,
and is not
stolen
welcome
property is
there,
not a
you're not
direct
allowed to
Let's
threat
shoot
start
on
with
your
them.
on your
life.
property, but let's start with on your property before you make up some shit here
So someone breaks
about
into your
us.
house.
No, hold on.
Someone
We're
breaks
gonna
into
do
your
this. Hold on. Let's address what you said first, so you don't start making up a whole bunch of hypotheticals in which you can kill someone, and then it's just weird. Okay? You cannot shoot someone over property. You cannot shoot someone running away from you, and you cannot shoot someone for just being on your property. And if you do, your ass is going to prison. And you cannot just shoot someone just for being in your house either.
When I meant running
You know
away, I
that?
meant like you get into a gunfight and they like run to a different place of cover is what I meant.
Yeah, that again, if they're taking cover, that doesn't give you the right to shoot them.
If you're in a gunfight, I said.
Yeah, but
Okay,
remember how I
you
said
didn't
you're
say
just gonna make up
gunfight.
situations where you can
Right now, you're
they can
adding
be
a
ambivalent
qualifier.
enough.
Okay, well
Right.
here's what I'm saying then. If we're just gonna do that, then if someone breaks into your house, you have the right to shoot them, is what I'm saying.
No, you don't.
Not all the time. No.
You don't. So
Not
if
all the
someone
time,
breaks into
no.
my house, I don't think that's true. I think you have the
Not all
right
the
to
time.
self-defense if
I
someone breaks
actually I
in your
know of
house.
I know of a story where a guy was charged.
In
I actually know two
Pennsylvania, you
stories.
can.
No, you can't.
That's where I live.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well
if
you
someone
can't
breaks
do
in your
that
house,
when
you
you're
can.
there. No, you can't. You got to listen for a second, okay? Because there's some important distinctions. One, it's weird to me that you're fascinated about this instead of putting someone on the ground. I would rather do that. If someone did break into my home, I'd be very, very concerned, right? And if it was that situation, sure. But in the instance of someone breaking into your home, you don't always have the right to shoot them. They have to be a threat to you. You have to be able to establish a threat. If someone's carrying it, this is actually a court case, by the way. If someone's carrying a TV down the stairs and they don't have the ability to pull a gun, you can't just shoot through the TV and kill them. I know of a case that happened in my state. This happens frequently, but there was a case in my state where a guy broke into this guy's mother-in-law, was taking a shower, was absolutely wasted. The guy yelled at him to get out. The guy didn't get out. He was just continuing taking the shower. Instead of going to call the cops, he went back and got his gun, came back and shot him. And now he's in prison for the rest of his life. So, no, there's some qualifiers. You have to be able to establish a reasonable fear for your life.
This is the stand the ground rule out of Pennsylvania. The statute justifies using deadly force to defend yourself, others, or your property in the face of immediate risk of pertinent bodily harm or danger. Simply being there doesn't constitute that.
I don't know. I've talked to friends of mine that are cops, and I've asked them about this, and they
Okay,
said
They're wrong.
if someone
Here's the
breaks into your
qualifiers.
house,
Here's the
cops are wrong.
qualifiers. Your attacker or person you used force against displayed a weapon or firearm capable of deadly force. You had reasonable belief that force or deadly force was necessary to protect yourself from harm, SA, kidnapping, or death. You were legally at the location where the attack occurred. All of those, simply just being there doesn't give you the right to doesn't
Can you
constitute the right to unalive them.
Well, you said malicious intent, right? Someone breaks into your house with malicious intent.
That does
I
not
mean, why else is
right
so?
because
You know,
that doesn't consist of immediate bodily
do you
endangerment.
understand the problem? Maybe someone comes over to your house, it's a family member, something happened in the middle of the night, whatever, they weren't able to reach you and they open the door and you shoot them, you know?
yeah,
Like
but
that's why you
that's
would
a
want.
situation. You were talking to me about bringing up situations. I'm talking about. It's
So I'm
pretty obvious.
saying
Like someone.
right, but
Right.
I'm saying that in not all situations, you're talking in absolutes, right? In not all situations can you just shoot someone for being in your house. Nor would I want to. There's a whole ass mess. You have to call in a fucking cleaner.
You're putting
It's not.
something into my mouth that I didn't
And
really say
potentially
though.
an unaliving charge.
Yeah, I'm talking about someone that's breaking into your house with like a malicious intent. That's
How do you
Yes, yeah,
establish a
yeah.
if I'm talking
malicious
Right.
about,
intent?
I'm
Listen,
not.
listen, listen.
You
I
know
know
what I
you
mean.
you keep right, so you keep trying to move this back to when you can do it, and that's fine. There are
I'm
absolutely
not moving it
instances.
back, man.
Hold on a second. There are absolutely instances where you can use deadly force. Nobody's saying that. Okay? What we're saying is, and in most instances the castle doctrine covers. However, people that hit this thing in their mind that they can just shoot anybody for any reason on their property, doing whatever. Like in their property, oh, they walked into my house, I can shoot them. No. If a solicitor just walks into your house, I don't know, I would probably freak out. But like if someone was like carrying a clipboard, like, hi, can I talk to you? You're not gonna be like, ah, like that would be weird, and you would go to jail.
That's my fault then. I was not specific enough. I thought you would have understood what I meant when I meant someone breaks into your house. I mean, I'm talking about like you feel like your life is in danger, so you have to use lethal force is what I was referring to.
Yeah, it happens. There have been a few times that I've thought I was gonna have to, but none of it materialized, and that's not. I'm just not gonna
Yeah,
go
well
shoot
that's
someone
what I'm
because.
talking about. And I think you can use any sort of weapon that you choose to. I think an AR-15, it's questionable because when you shoot, it can go through walls.
Anthony, answer
But
one second. I'm
what
being
was
honest
that?
with you. If someone, I would not want an AR in home defense at all. It's big, it's bulky. I mean, they can be, but for the largest,
Well, you were
it's
talking about
too.
using a shotgun.
Yeah, I
You
would use a
think a
shotgun. Yeah.
shotgun's big and bulky? Well, how is a shotgun
Not
not big and
as
bulky, but
big
an
as.
Not
AR-15
nearly
is?
as large.
A
Well, I
12
mean,
gauge shotgun is longer than an
I would
AR-15.
say, right. I would say a lot of it is. No, I don't know. Maybe it's just my AR, but my shotgun's lighter, I think. But I just feel more comfortable with it. Plus, the whole reason I wouldn't use an AR is one,
Well, that's
it's
fine
just
if you're more
it's
comfortable.
just well no, but even as an AR, like from a practical perspective, I wouldn't do it. I would use a shotgun because I'm super proficient in it. But if I wasn't super proficient in a shotgun, I would opt for a handgun.
Well, I
Something
would
light,
much rather
compact
use.
that can't get taken from me.
Well, no one's gonna take an AR from you. I'll tell you that. If you think someone's gonna grab an AR out of your hands, it's not gonna happen. I
Yeah,
mean,
that can happen.
no, that's not gonna.
Yes,
Compare to any gun. That can happen with any gun. Then there's no. It's not more likely to happen with an AR-15 than any other weapon.
I would rather have. Be honest, I'd rather have buckshot. But no, in a handgun,
That's
you can keep
fine.
a handgun tucked.
That's what you prefer. That's what
Right,
you
but you can
prefer,
keep
and
a
that's
handgun.
fine.
You can keep a handgun tucked. Is why. But for a shotgun, I would much prefer a shotgun because you can actually get like 18-inch shotguns, by the way, and they're yeah. I know this is
Yeah,
a random
you can
pedantic
get small
conversation.
shotguns, yeah, but an AR-15 is also a fairly short rifle.
I just
You know, it's not like
wouldn't
a.
use it. Wouldn't use it.
Well, that's fine. I'm just what I'm trying to say is I think you should be able to use it if that's what you're used to. Like for example, I'm not proficient at all with a shotgun, but I have a lot of training with 5.56 rifles, so that's just what I would use. I think
I
I
don't
should
know.
be
I don't
allowed
really want
to.
to do the gun talking. Um, All right.
I mean,
Well,
if you want to
anyways,
switch to something else, we can.
yeah,
But
I prefer it.
I'm just saying. Yeah, we
I'm
can
not
switch to something
super
else.
fond. I'm not super fond of the gun stuff. I generally think that there should be more restrictions because I don't think that there are people that are qualified that have guns, and that's
No, that's
concerning.
fine. We can move to something else. I have one more topic that because I feel like a lot of people are against me on this one, and I just I would just like to know what you guys think about it with Gaza. I think um I think Israel is in the right because if America was attacked by and like had some sort of terrorist attack on us from like a neighboring country, I feel like we would do the same thing that
It
Israel's
doesn't even
doing.
have to be neighboring. Right. I think unilaterally, the consensus is that the war in Iraq and Afghanistan was one of the largest foreign policy blunders in the last century. Whether or not a terrorist attack was what provoked that, the response has been nothing but disproportionate and has led to unnecessary loss of life. So even if Canada did that, I don't think that excuses mass death in akin to terrorist actions taking place on the behest of the United States and torture programs and things like that, bombing innocent civilians. That shouldn't be the response.
Yeah, I think that very clearly the understanding of us coming out of the war on terror is that the bombs you drop oftentimes will create more terrorists than they kill. So,
Yeah, well, they're like their
and
headquarters are in like
if you're,
hospitals.
I mean, it's a pretty indefensible position that you could there is nowhere in the world that you could say this really bad person lives there and we should blow the whole place up, right? Like that only applies to the Middle East. That doesn't apply other places. Like that applies to North Africa and the Middle East. But you couldn't do that anywhere. Like you couldn't go in like anywhere in Europe and be like, "Oh, this really bad person lives in this one place that's going to and then blow it up."
I don't think the
Like
bombs
that
are
just
right. I'll get that out of the way. I don't think bombing, especially the hospitals and the churches, I don't condone that at all. But I think using just like standard infantry and clearing out Gaza
well,
is, I think that's fair
the but what's even the objective in being there?
to
Is your objective
eliminate
just to
Hamas.
create an okay, and then create a I mean, you're not going to. You're not going to. There's extensive tunnel networks under the whole city. You're
I
just
think it's
not going to do
possible.
that. You know,
The
I
like
think
this is
civilians are not
something that
Hamas.
I think that this is something that generally speaking, a lack of I would generally say that there's a lack of want to resolve the situation by Israel. And I'm not saying that that's probably not true of Hamas as well. What I am saying is that Israel has they hold all the leverage. They hold the leverage of everything, right? And if you're going to take a country, which Israel has done, and refuse to give autonomy to give self determination to, you're going to create a problem. This is just true. If this were the case in America, right, you would be like, oh, I need my guns for tyranny, right? Same deal. Your water, your food, your electricity, everything that comes in and out is controlled by Israel. Like, yeah, it's going to create a lot of issues. So if you give them, if they would give the Palestinian Authority, like if they would give them the ability to govern, or if you were to have like but having if the option is like extremist network or really shitty government, right? At a certain point, really shitty government becomes the worst of two options to the people living there. Like if they don't have self determination, yeah.
Um, I don't think so. I don't agree with that. I think
With what?
I think it's worse to have a terrorist organization in your community.
No, that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm not saying. I agree with that. I am saying that the people of Palestine are going. Look, we're not. We have a governing body. Okay. By the way, Hamas never even won popular election, but they have a governing. They got enough to win. There was a deal. Anyways, you have a government that is not getting us food, water, this, that, and the other, and there's no end in sight for it. We're under constant issue bombardments, whatever. There's no end in sight for this. Just shitty existence into perpetuity, just forever. Or this other group that is at least willing to vent out anger. So the people there are going, oh, do I pick this really shitty government or somebody that is promising to do anger towards these people? And we see this through a lot of human history, right? The rise of extremist groups, in large part because of, in large part because of the way that people are treated globally, or the perception of the way that they're treated globally, and with authoritarian regimes in terms of self-victimization.
Hamas has just done terrible, terrible things. Like it's just like
that didn't. Hold on.
putting
Hold on. Two things. Don't say either of those. Appreciate it. Yes, that wasn't true.
Oh yeah, my fault. I forgot.
Yeah, that wasn't true.
Yeah,
That wasn't true.
it was. It
No,
was
that's
true.
been
Absolutely wasn't.
disproven by Israel.
No, it's been debunked.
It wasn't debunked. The people
Yes,
said
it was. The
Photoshop.
Israeli government found no sufficient evidence of that taking place.
I've heard otherwise.
It's been
You
debunked
can-
since you're hearing
You
this.
can go look it up, but that's the deal.
Okay, well, we'll talk. What about the festival? Like either way, they're doing horrible things, and things that just can't be tolerated.
So is Israel. And I'd say more egregious things
Right.
compared to Hamas.
But how?
I mean,
you think Israel's
Israel.
doing
So
worse
here's the
things than
thing.
Hamas?
Here's the thing, though.
That's
You're like
wild.
pointing at one instance
What?
of Hamas and ignoring the decades of
I'm
oppression
not talking
by
about
Israel.
one instance. That was
Well,
an
yeah, you're
example. That was
pointing to
one
this-
example.
You're pointing
That
to
was
the
one
music
example.
festival.
And here's the thing. I'm not even going to defend that. Like, I have no
Not-
intent, want, or anything else to defend that. But if your argument is that Hamas bad, Israel not, that's not true. Like, you have to remember,
I didn't say that.
Israel has been bombarding the United States, or has been bombarding Gaza with United States built or coordinated built equipment. Like, they've been leveling these buildings with advanced equipment.
Yeah,
For
And-
decades.
I said the bombings.
So what is? I mean,
The
what does
bombing
Hamas?
should
But
stop.
look at what does Hamas have though, right? Like realistically, okay, they had an attack. There are some rocket systems. Most of them are small. None of them are remotely comparable to what Israel has.
Hamas is the ones that are hiding. They're hiding in the hospitals. They're the
They're
ones
hiding.
that are.
They're hiding where they, dude. They're not hiding in the hospitals. They're hiding where they can. It's not like they're like. There is stuff like so. There was a report showing that there was at least some evidence of Hamas underneath a hospital. To what degree we don't know.
It wasn't some. There was a video.
I know. I
There's
saw
a
the
whole
video.
of
Yeah.
them going inside. Yeah, well, that's not
Right. It was Israel going in and doing that. And it was like a few empty rooms underneath a hospital.
There's the whole like.
I wouldn't call
hospital
that
floor.
the
There's
command post of
a weapon
Hamas.
stash.
Right.
Listen, I don't like the idea of like, oh, the human shield argument, because you've given them the most, you've created Gaza into being the most densely populated person or place on earth by constantly leveling and occupying, right? So where are they supposed to go? It's like the Biden, and this is why I'm so angry at the Biden administration over this, is because they've taken this stance too. But the reality is the Biden administration, when the war in Ukraine happened, there was a report that came out from Amnesty International that said, well, Ukraine is actually, they're too close to all of the civilian infrastructure. Like their set up command bases are too close to the hospitals and they're too close to the schools and whatever, ignoring the fact that Russia purposefully targeted schools, ignoring for the fact that Russia purposely targeted hospitals. The Biden administration came out and criticized that report. And the criticism they gave was just and fair. And they said, look, they're in a war zone in an urban dense environment. there's going to be overlap there. Like they don't have the space. They're in these small towns where everything is right here, or they're in these other towns where everything's right here in the center of the town. That's where the fight's happening. So it would make sense that you would have their military too close. And Amnesty International came out and was like, oh, yeah, actually, that's probably true. I think it was Amnesty International. Sorry if I'm misquoting. They're like, oh, yeah, actually, that is true. And so you have the Biden administration making that distinction for Ukraine, despite the fact that there's way more land in Ukraine for Ukrainians to do that, but not in Gaza, where there's not. That make sense?
It does, yeah, but I feel like there are other buildings that they definitely could have, because you're saying they had it, they didn't
I
even
feel like
have it
this
in
is.
the what?
I think this is just a focal point where people want to focus on the hospital, but the reality is it's not just the hospital that's getting bombed. It's a ton of other apartment complexes. It's a ton of other buildings that are being bombed outside, in and outside of a hospital. They bombed a refugee camp. There's no, even Wolf Blitzer, that is a full-blown Zionist, was like, I don't understand why you would, he was questioning Israel on CNN, like, I don't understand. Why would you, even he, and Wolf Blitzer is the Ron Burgundy of journalism. He is just clueless. If I had to point to, if someone was like, I have no idea what a robot is, I would point to him. But he still figured it out.
No, yeah, you're right. I definitely the bombings are definitely bad, especially in crowded areas like that, because like you were saying, civilians get hurt, everyone gets hurt. It's just not good. I'm not for the bombs at all. I completely disagree with that take. I think what needs to happen is they need to use more light infantry and to like do what they did in like Fallujah and just clear buildings type of situation. But
To be honest with you, I think the only way that you change this is to make the Palestinian people and the people in Gaza respect Israel enough that Hamas seems like a bad idea. That's the only way
Right.
that this is going to happen.
A preemptive measure. Give them a two-state solution, initiate a ceasefire, and release of hostages.
Because this is doable. We did it with the Taliban. Granted, the deal in that instance sucked because Trump did it, but it is negotiable with the Taliban, at least. You can negotiate this with them. Like, this is doable. Like, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. I don't think the animosity is going to end. But the problem is, to be completely honest with you, is that I don't know that either side actually wants that in terms of the people that are in charge.
yeah, it's been conflict in the Middle East for like I don't even know how long. Hundreds and hundreds of years. I don't think it'll ever go away. I think the only way to handle it is to wipe out the organization like as a whole, because
Well,
otherwise
why are
like
you
it's just
not
gonna
holding
keep
the
growing.
standard? But why are you not holding the standard for Israel? Why are you not talking about the destruction of, or not the destruction, but the replacement of the head of Israel, the state, the war cabinet right now?
Well, what do you
Like,
mean?
why
Like,
are we
are
not
you talking
talking
about
about that?
like
I
what?
mean, if you want to talk about, I mean, it's clear, like across this entire conflict, right? The most amount of people that have died are on the Palestinian side. Period. So why can't the Palestinian people call the Bibi administration a terrorist organization? They have every right. They have
Because
more right.
it's retaliation. That's why.
It
They're,
hasn't been retaliation for most of the time. You point to this one attack that happened, but this is a back and forth. And if it's going to be a back and forth, and you're going to say this back and forth is too far, then where's the hate for all the other ones that Israel has done on them?
what do you mean the other things that Israel's done? It's just been
Yes,
retaliation, like I
the
said.
bombings in Gaza for decades. The bombings in Palestine or in the West Bank for decades. I guess it would be mostly Gaza, but there were some bombings that happened in the West Bank in 2020, 2021. Like,
But there was some sort of peace in Israel, and now it's just like a war zone because this event happened.
there's usually not
That's why
very
it's so
much.
important.
There's usually animosity until peace blows up. But in 2018, 2019, Israel was bombing Gaza. Like nobody's saying like nobody. So I'm not saying that like, oh, Hamas is great. No, Hamas is clearly a terrorist organization funded by at least two other terrorist organizations. So like nobody's saying they're good, but you have to be realistic about the problem. It's like this, right? The United States went to war in the Middle East, right? This is not a justification of what happened on September 11th. However, the United States is in part responsible for it because of the way that we treat people around the globe and the way that we conducted business globally. Right? We created the issue where we go out and we get involved and we create a bunch of mayhem and destruction and then leave. And what we did in Afghanistan, for instance, in the 80s, absolutely led to the rise of global terrorism. Not because we funded them, but because we abandoned them, right? And all the other bombings and everything that we've done. And so if you take it from that perspective, you can say that, hey, 9/11's bad. The grievances, though, that these extremist groups hold outside of the religious stuff, by and large, not unreasonable, right? Palestine, like one of the main complaints about, the guy that orchestrated 9/11, which was Osama and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed and the others involved, largely Obama, it's a long night.
Osama.
It's largely Osama and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, was Palestine, right? Was the bombings that we were doing globally. In fact, 9/11 was response for an Iranian airliner that was shot down by the United States. So, like, you have to take that into totality when you're making your response. Like, is this going to escalate things? And it's led the United States to ask the question throughout the entire early 2000s, are we creating more terrorists than we're actually taking care of? And the answer to that was yes. Clearly.
Okay, so if you don't think Israel responded in the way they did, then what do you think it would have gone better? Because what I think is if Israel didn't respond in a way where they're going to retaliate, then I feel like Hamas would have just kept going and just made it worse.
Here's the thing. I think that Israel very clearly had pretty global unanimity and then immediately squandered it by refusing to listen to literally anyone. So Israel could have used this for their benefit, for, whatever. Instead, they could have taken that and maybe built something off of it. They didn't do that. They didn't just retaliate. They kept doing it, and it kept getting worse and worse and worse while the world is screaming for them to stop, and they're not. And they're doing, and to be honest with you, a lot of this has to do with the Bibi administration. Probably most of this has to do with the Bibi administration. The fact that he is very concerned about not only his political future, but his actual future.
Well, because what happens is Israel retaliated, and then obviously they attack back, and then it just keeps going back and forth. So that's what the issue is.
Right,
but when you going back and forth.
Right, but you have global support, right? There's gonna be like a degree of it's so fucking late. There's gonna be a degree of authority you have, right? And they just didn't take that. Like, they took it and they said, oh, send us support and aid and all this other stuff. And Bibi played Biden. That's the truth, right? If people want to know what I would ask Biden, it was like, if I got into a room with Biden, to be honest with you, I know Harry has. If I got in a room with Biden, it would be about that. I would ask him about it. I don't care if it's in front of cameras. He got played by Bibi. And yeah, they're refusing to come off that now. And he could have taken that goodwill and turned it into something constructive, and instead didn't just retaliate, just kept going. Kept going. And then, I'll be honest with you, he might even just let it happen. Bill's in here. Bill, that was my initial assessment. Was it not? I sent a whole lengthy ass thing to Bill and a couple other people. I don't know if Bill's still awake. That was my assessment. Was that Bibi Netanyahu of Israel. I was like, because here's the deal. Like, Yeah, I did. There's Bill right in the comment section. Yeah, that was my very first assessment within like a day. And the reason is the Mossad, which is the like the CIA of them. They're one of the most accomplished intelligence agencies in the world. There's no debating that. They're incredible at what they do. Some of the shit they do is very, very 1960s CIA-ish, but they're good at their job regardless, right? Regardless of all the policy stuff and whatever, they get results, right? There is absolutely no way that they missed this. And within a day of me saying that, reports started coming out about how Egypt warned them. The United States wouldn't say they warned them, but other countries came out and said they warned them. I don't think that's a mistake they make. I'm gonna be honest. I know there's gonna be never a conclusive report on this. That's my belief. See, let it happen. Well,